as a citizen, regardless of your social standing or your income, you have basic rights as a consumer. Now, are you aware of those rights? And do you feel like those rights are fully protected in Nigeria? This is State of the Culture, brought to you by Izesan, Speak Izesan, the African language learning app. Now, learning a new language is a way of appreciating, a culture. So if you'd like to appreciate African culture today, you can go ahead and download the app on any place that you get your apps from. My name is Angatin Justina. I'm your host, and with me I have my usual lovely co-host. I don't know why this one is, stretching out. Don't you get enough in the gym? Why are you trying to do it here?
Because, too much exercise is never a problem. Wow. Exactly.
So you do too much of it?
No, at least some of us exercise.
Okay.
Talking about you, though.
Social perfect.
I'm not going to say that,
okay,
but
okay.
Who struggled up the stairs this morning?
Fine. She struggled up the stairs.
Wow, you're really outing me on the show.
Wait, when last did you gym? When last did you exercise?
So my name is Angatin Justina.
You said that before.
Let me move on.
Okay, and I'm Nefisat Ognene Abdurrahman.
Frederick, your social prefect.
Yeah, Mr. No Forehead. Okay, and like I said, today we're talking about consumer protection rights in Nigeria. Are they protected? And to talk about this topic, I have someone who has, been waiting patiently here at Miss Ola Banta. He's an authority on this topic. He's a corporate lawyer, a senior lecturer, a published author, and, it goes more than that, showing that you are more than we need for this topic. Please, this is Mr. Zuhair Jubril. Did I say that right? Because we cannot be mispronouncing names on State of the Culture.
Right.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
She's feeling herself right now.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Jubril, for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So let's just open up. First of all, what are the consumer rights that are recognized globally, first off? And do they apply in Nigeria as well?
Yes, before I tackle the question, let me tell the audience that don't mind her. She said I'm an authority on that. I'm just not too sure of that.
Wow, humility.
That's what humble people say.
Yeah, we appreciate
That's how they
humility
say it.
anytime.
They just reduce the level of everything they're good in.
It's okay, sir. Your face show.
Your shoe shine.
Your shoe shine. Your shoe shine. Don't worry.
Well, like she said, I'm a corporate lawyer, an author, and an astute administrator, and a fellow of some of these chartered institutes. I'm a fellow of Chartered Institutes of Administrators, a fellow of the International Association of Research Scholars and Administrators, a fellow of the International Management and Certified Management Consultant, as well as a senior lecturer now with the Bayes University.
I understand. That's why you're telling us, you're an authority on it. Globally, what are the rights of consumers and do they apply here in Nigeria?
All right. From the international perspective, prior to the intervention of the United Nations, consumer rights were virtually non-existent, especially as regards relationship between companies, organizations, and the citizens where they work or they establish their businesses. Over a period of time, it became a source for concern for many countries, especially the role played by multinational companies in those communities. For instance, we have the multinational oil and gas companies that were given concessions to come and prospect and produce petroleum in various communities. Prior to the United Nations, they were given concession, and we call that traditional concession. Because an oil company, for instance, can come into a country and those companies will be given concessions to mine petroleum. They did it the way they felt or as they deemed fit, without much concern for the environment. That's why we had so many oil spills.
Yeah.
Without concern to the health of the communities. That's why we have gas flaring. At the end of the day, you find these communities having lung cancer, respiratory problems, skin diseases, and all the things. It was not the business of these companies or organizations to take care of those communities. It became so bad that at a point, the United Nations had to intervene to protect those communities and their citizens. That is how we came about the United Nations intervention. So what I was telling you is prior to the United Nations intervention, what happened and what really led to this agitation. In 1985, so to say, the United Nations deemed it fit to pass some resolutions to that effect. So we had the United Nations guidelines on the protection of consumers. And what was that resolution about? It brought out 8 basic things that a product or a manufacturer or a company must take care of before selling their products. Consumers were given some basic rights according to the United Nations resolution on guidelines on consumer protection, resolution 39/148, they call it. So what are those guidelines? Every consumer has the right to basic education on the products you want to sell. He had the right of health safety on those products, choice, representation, satisfaction, about 8 or so of them. But legally speaking, we may ask, what is the legal efficacy of the United Nations resolutions? Are they really binding?
Yeah.
Resolutions passed by the United Nations are resolutions. They don't have legal efficacy. Just like the title of the resolution, guidelines. It has a persuasive mean. You can only persuade those companies and manufacturers or whoever to do the needful, to be guided by these 8 things. That means, can you sue when any of these guidelines have been breached based on the United Nations resolutions? That's what we need to know.
You know, it's very interesting you have mentioned that, and you've spoken about how the UN has given us guidelines through resolutions. So bringing it like right back to where we are, obviously we know that international organizations can only be persuasive at most, right? So with regards to Nigeria, I already have this piece of legislation in my head, but just to make it clear, is there any singular piece of legislation that actually governs and protects consumers' rights, or are they scattered across a few? Because I know the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Act that got made law in 2018. I know that is the major one. So just to kind of like elaborate on that particular act, and if there are other pieces of legislation that actually govern consumer rights, which can allow people sue.
Yes.
Sure, good question.
That's a very good one. But before I go that, how many people really know who a consumer is? Who's a consumer? We get to know through the laws. Before I said that, the United Nations resolutions can be adopted by every member country for it to have some authority. So in our constitution, 1999 constitution as amended, any international treaty, convention, or resolutions have to be domesticated within your laws for it to give it some backing. So our legislatures took care of that. So we are now bound by the guidelines of the United Nations resolution. Prior to 2018, as you were saying, there wasn't any law to really protect any consumer. Not until 2004, really, when we had the Consumer Protection Act.
Yeah.
Where it was grossly inadequate. It wasn't, it hasn't gotten the wider spread that is expected. So, in 2018, we have the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Act. And by virtue of that, it created some regulations on how a consumer should be protected. But coming back to my question, who really is a consumer? A consumer, according to Section 32 of the Act, says is somebody who purchases, who uses or maintains a product to his own satisfaction. It is assumed that when you buy that, it will give you the necessary satisfaction. If it doesn't, something else.
Yeah.
But forgive me for being a lawyer sometimes.
It's fine.
I ask, what if I don't buy? That the consumer is somebody who purchases. What if I don't purchase? I come to your place, you entertain me with a bottle of drink. I got poisoned. Did I buy it?
No.
Am I a consumer within the legal means?
No.
Does it also apply to services as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Goods and services.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's actually interesting because, like, we've had an episode where we talked about customer service. So in the process of providing you customer service, like you mentioned, and you get into a situation where you're poisoned, the law, you cannot go to court and actually, use the consumer protection to back yourself up.
No, we're going by the legal meaning of who a consumer is. I'm just trying to show the defect. Somebody who purchases and he uses. And I said, what if I come to you, entertain me, give me something, and I got poisoned?
Yeah.
I now see the products that the drink you've given me is poisoned. The standard is not how it should be. Legally speaking, can I sue the Coca-Cola company or the Fanta company?
No.
No.
But
No.
just to bring this up,
Yes.
because this is just what I'm trying to do.
Yes.
Also, but just to brush on that topic, would you think that in that kind of event, like you would have to bring on that, let's say, negligence, like go through the long way of like torts and just go through negligence rather than go through what the act itself says as a consumer? Because if you're right, then it's pretty defective if it doesn't cover people who they owe a duty of care to just by consuming their product.
Yes, you don't need to go through all those long processes. But the question is, the Federal Competition Consumer Protection Act enough to give sanction to this sort of things?
Okay.
That's the issue we need to look at. You see, it's not about breaching the law. If you breach the law, what next? So we need to look at the sanctions, the penalties aspect of it, not just the breach of it. Okay? So like I was saying, do we really go strictly by the legal definition of who a consumer is? Will that serve the purpose?
No, not even.
Certainly not.
Not even.
So there must be some amendments to that laws, because the philosophy, I can say, behind the Consumer Protection Act is to protect the consumer from harm, either from the purchase of goods or services. All right?
Yeah.
Not just to bring some impediments. So that law should have been adequate enough to protect the consumers. In my belief, the definition of a consumer should have been widened, given a broad meaning. But thank God, the courts don't restrict themselves to technicalities. They look at it broadly and
Okay, sir. So you've told us that as a result of some of the issues we had earlier with producers and manufacturers of goods not putting the consumer into consideration when producing goods and services to this consumer in question. And you also said that the knowledge of consumer protection is not widespread as it should be. What would you say is the barrier that exists when it comes to educating consumers about this Protection Act?
yes, one of the basic guidelines, the United Nations guidelines, is awareness, education, consumer education. And this has been adopted by the Federal Competition Consumer Protection Act as well. Consumers ought to know these rights, but how many of us know our rights? No. So what really limits the consumer education, so to say, is not one or two things. If I should summarize it, I can say corruption.
Okay.
People rely on government to educate them, forgetting that the providers of goods and services have a duty, first and foremost, to educate the consumers. If I have a product, I need to say, consumer, beware, or buyer, beware, and put some labels on it. If I know our psyche, I'm in a hurry to buy something, how do I even stay and read and say whether there's a label there or not? So sometimes it has to do with our own character as well. The manufacturers or sellers of goods and services have the basic duty to educate their consumers. The government has to come in again and shouldn't rely on the consumers alone and educate the consumers on their rights, but nothing of such has been done. Because you can imagine, it wasn't until 2004 that we even had the first legislation on consumer protection. Does that show any seriousness? Then
Certainly
2018
not.
as well, the government has a role to educate the consumers, but that role is not being played because of corruption. Well, you can ask me, in what way do you think
I
that?
was actually going to ask
Yeah,
that.
I read your mind. In what way? For instance, we have Nigerian, what do you call NOA,
Orientation agency.
agency. We have the Federal Ministry of Information.
Yeah.
We have various departments in any government agency. And the first culprit is the Federal Ministry of Trade and Investment, which the Federal Consumer and Protection Council comes under. Are they doing their job? No. Why? Okay. You have read BA, Bachelor of Arts Hausa.
Yes.
or Yoruba or Igbo. And somebody that has read mass comm will not be employed, but you will be employed. How is the job going to be done?
True.
Because you know somebody there. Put the right people
Nepotism.
at the right places, and you see action. All right? That is the first, that's one of the issues I'm talking about, corruption. Those who will do the job are not there to do it. Secondly, funding. When you don't provide the necessary funding to those organizations, do you know how much it costs to advertise?
Oh, it's a lot.
It's a lot. But this is a government agency, they ought to do it. Where the funding? It's not there. Thirdly, do they even care whether a consumer is poisoned or he doesn't receive the necessary services? No. Number 4, lack of enforcement of breach. Where a manufacturer or a producer of any goods and services did not do what he's supposed to do, who sanctioned him? How many were jailed? If somebody gets away with it, another person says, oh, after all, if I do it, I will get away with it.
Even the process of seeking redress, is it as direct as it should be? Like if I want to say, charge or take what do you call it?
Sue a company.
Sue a company for a violation.
They ought to provide a very easy access to justice. For instance, last week, one of my students came to me and said, sir, I received an unreasonable bill from the electricity company in millions.
Major violator.
And I said, what did you do? He said, I have to write a petition to the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Council. And they wrote to the Electricity Regulatory Commission. I said, why didn't you write to the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission direct? Well, there are rules, there is a law there that says if you are overbilled or your bill is uncertain, the law says you should not pay the bill.
Yeah.
Are you aware of that? You cannot even, the electricity company cannot even take off lights just like that without telling you. They'll be in trouble legally. They need to give you notice. Do they do all the things in Nigeria?
Not at
Why?
all.
Because have there been sanctions against anybody?
No.
No. So business as usual. So these are some of the limitations.
Okay, talking about these limitations, you mentioned advertising. So I want to ask, we have people at the grassroots level that do not have access to television, and some of them only have access to radio. Some of them have access to newspaper, but we all know people from the grassroots level have little or no access to education, so making it very difficult for them. Do you think there are other steps these organizations could use? I mean, I think during the regime of Dora Akunyili, she had this ideology, and it really worked for NAFDAC. Like having a one-on-one talk with the market people, pharmacies, and all that. So do you think there are other means of reaching out to people to educate them? Also, before you answer the question, sorry, I have a lot of questions.
It's fine.
The developed countries have this consumer protection in their school curriculum. Do you think Nigeria can go far if they introduce this?
As to your first question, you are right. Advertisement alone is not sufficient to inform the consumers. And we know the reasons. Not all of us go to school. There are people that don't read, or can't read or write, and they are still consumers, although not within the strict legal meaning of consumers. They need to be informed. is grossly uneducated. Yes, there are ways of reaching out to them, because if you want their votes, you know how to get to the rural areas.
Yes.
And tell them,
Always.
why don't we adopt such things? We can always borrow. So that's a very effective means of reaching the rural people. All right. As to the second question, what is it about?
I said developed countries have introduced consumer protection education to their school curriculum.
Okay, whether it should be put in the school curriculum,
Yes.
that would be a bit helpful, but not to some extent. To some extent, yes. But like I said before, how many people go to school? If you go to the market, you find a lot of people that, like you rightly said, don't even watch TV.
Yeah.
Even if they want to watch the TV, where the electricity.
Yes.
So mass mobilization, the political way that they use to do it in politics, mass mobilization is one of the key issues that the government has to embark on a lot of goods and services consumption. Like, let me give you an example. When one of the telecommunications companies came to my village to install a telemast, they didn't tell the people the bad side of it. Oh, you have network, you have services, you have phones.
Only the good.
All right, what next? They said, no, let's talk to our man. He came to me that the communication company gave them 10 million naira to allow them to put a mast there. And they were so happy. They were given free handsets, free SIM cards, and say, hold on.
Looks too good to be true.
Did they follow the rules as enshrined by the Nigerian Nuclear Safety Radiation Protection? What you are going to put up there has irradiative effects, ionizing things. Before you know it, in the next 3-5 years, you will have respiratory problems, skin diseases, hair loss. You don't know why? Radiation. And the rule says you don't put your mast in residential areas.
Yes.
But people are rushing to rent their houses, premises for those. So lack of education. You need to, they know what they are doing.
Still on consumer education, now let's leave, people that don't have access to televisions, people that do have access to televisions and smartphones. We find that a couple of them still do not know these laws and these rights. How can they know? Because I might speak for myself here when I'm saying that there are a couple of things that you've said here that I'm not aware of, and I don't know about this guys, but speaking for myself. So how can I?
All right,
French. So you've been shortchanging me.
No. Just go on, because he's on the trajectory. Because in line with that, how do we actually kind of like get word out to them? Like, I think a follow-up question is, I would go is, we're here to educate. So we are here to also inform people on what is also available. So far, we've gotten the problems. So far, we've gotten some of the solutions. But one thing I think we have missed is, okay, on the FCCPA, what rights have been protected? What rights do consumers actually have under this? Because before we even look at, fine-tuning or getting a solution, we must even know what's available. What are we exactly fine-tuning? How do we quantify that? So what are these rights that have been introduced by the new, it's not really new, but the new act?
Same rights provided by the guidelines, United Nations guideline on consumer protection.
So it's copy and paste?
Yeah, not really copy and paste. We have our own peculiarities. That is why the government went ahead to create some agencies to back the things. NAFDAC, for instance.
Okay.
NERC, Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission. We have seen what NAFDAC is doing.
Yes.
Right? We have seen what the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission ought to do. We have seen what the Nigerian Energy Commission also ought to do. So basically, all these rights, as enshrined by the United Nations and more, are what is available to every consumer of goods and services. Okay? But I still feel the Federal Competition Consumer Protection Act needs amendment in so many ways. Because there are people, not her, who also don't know their rights.
Love the shade. Yeah.
All right? Must you be protected by manufacturers alone or providers of goods and services, corporates? Or what about those people? You go to the market to buy things from a third party. Like I said once, I told my friend there, I used to go and buy chicken, roasted chicken. At that time it was 1.5. So my wife says, let's go out, get some things, stuff. I don't feel like cooking. I said, okay. We went to buy the normal chicken at 1.5. The man looked at me and says, it's 3,005 now. I said, what? From 1.5? I said, okay, justify the price increase. He said, the dollar has gone up. As a consumer, is there any law that protects me from arbitrary increase in prices? Not really from corporate organizations. If it's just federal corporate organizations, yes. The Federal Competition, Competitive and Consumer Protection are there, but a chicken seller, a tomato seller, food seller, are we really protected from arbitrary increase in prices? That's a consumer abuse. Consumers ought to be protected. You buy something now, in the next 2 hours, the price change. As a consumer, I have the right to know why such things happen. I mean, I buy something at this price, I know. But the next hour, it goes. An engineer came to me, to my house last week and said, sir, you are a lawyer. Do you have any knowledge on this? I went to buy a bag of cement for a construction job, and it was 3,008. The man told me 3,008, and I needed 100 bags. So we did the calculation, and for the 100 bags, we know how much it costs. I called the owner of the building and said, this is what happened. And the owner said, okay, he sent the money. Within 5 minutes, the money was in the engineer's account. He told the man, this is your money for the 100 bags, but I need to go to the bank and bring them out. Keep them aside. He brought them aside. When he came back from the bank, the man said 4,002 per bag. Take it or leave it. What? Consumers ought to be protected, not only from corporate organizations. It doesn't speak well on a situation where everybody does what he likes.
Yeah, that's why I asked that question, because unlike some people who may have, direct, might be lawyers or have studied law and have that, and other people who study other courses, and the most they know about law is probably from NLS, which is like a general course. What do we need to do to know about these rights? Do we read the Act? How do we know about some of these things?
Even if you read the Act, you may not understand what it's all about. And by the way, how many people read the Act? You need to look at the wider society, not just the educated ones. The wider society need or ought to be protected. Awareness, education, mass awareness. Like I told you before, if they want votes, they know what to do to reach the most illiterate of the illiterates. Why can't the government do something like that? Because if you rely on the providers of goods and services to do it, they will not do it. Often when they do it, they put it in a very small writing that bowers beware. You don't even have the time to say, let me read this, let me read that, and see what it's all about.
Okay, sir. So we've talked so much about the consumer rights protection. For the purpose of the show, can you tell us what are these rights as stated by the Nigerian law?
Like I said, the rights to good choice of products, the right to be informed about any defect or otherwise, the right to put label on the products. How? I went to buy tires for my car and I bought brand new ones, not knowing that they were expiring that year.
Wow.
You need to put the label there so that somebody will read what is buying. How long is it taking for this to expire? The right of choice. You want to go to buy something, they say, no, this and this are similar. The other one is not available. This can perform the same function. Let me choose. Please. Satisfaction, the right to be satisfied with what you have bought. If I buy something as a consumer, I buy it for the purpose of attaining satisfaction. I buy it only to go home and find out that it is contrary to what I expect. I ought to return it back. Again, another right is you have the right to return any product that does not meet what you expect.
Instagram vendors. Instagram vendors. Same as actual people. Instagram vendors. I knew you today. No.
Yeah, so
because
this one has just been waiting for.
No, it's not just that. We don't have a culture of allowing people to return things. Like, as he said, it actually is a right. You actually have the right to return things, but you find out that a lot of times when you buy anything, they are quick to remind you there's a no refund policy. So it is very interesting. Now you've heard it, you have the right to actually return things that don't meet the satisfactory purposes of which you initially made that purchase.
So for companies that actually stated clearly no refund policy, is that right?
That is being clearer by half. Policy cannot override an act.
Okay.
Just like going to the hotel to park your car, they say owners
At owner's risk.
At owner's risk.
Park the
What nonsense is that? You are expected to take precaution. I can't go and park in a hotel and throw my door open and go to sleep. But if I take necessary precaution and they say at owner's risk, I look at them and laugh. Do you really know what that means? At owner's risk? What follows that policy framework is that I can do anything I like in your hotel. Do you like that? So no, you can't. Okay, remove the sign. Okay? The law, if the law provides for something, it overrides any other thing. What policy are we talking about when we have a law on ground? However, there are instances where the providers of goods and services will tell you that this is what you want to buy, this is what you expect. We've gotten the thing as it is. We will not be responsible for what happened. At least you have sufficient information whether to go through it or not. You have a choice, don't you?
Yes.
But where you are not given a choice, especially that this Pencom Commission, they say when we retire, we have to open a pension, we have to align ourselves with the pension administrator so that our pension will go there. I registered with one. But at the middle of the game, they changed the goalposts. I said I needed to withdraw my money. They say you can't. We have a new rule now, a new policy. I say, I beg your pardon. What policy are you talking about? This is my money. And I want to. You say I can't. Why didn't you tell me before I registered with you? I say, Oga, what you said makes sense. But the Nigerian way. Anybody can bring up a policy in the middle of the game and nobody does anything about it. I blame the authorities for that. Okay? Yeah. I have the right under section 122 or thereabouts to return anything. If you say you are not taking it back, I slap you with the axe. If you drag further, I file for damages, which is more than what that product is. Say, okay, we don't want to return it, take your thing. But if they are sure you don't know you are right,
exactly,
they'll tell you, no refund. What do you mean no refund? And they argue that when you bought it, did you buy it with your eyes closed? Why are you telling us you need to refund? I said, look, I'll refund. So people ought to know about this. If the providers of goods and services tell you that, look at it very well. Like I went to buy a television. And the owner of those company told me that you have to buy LG. LG, there's Hisense, for instance. Yeah. I said, I want 85 inches. They said, no, LG comes with 82 inches. Hisense comes with 85 inches. I said, okay, well, I want the biggest. They say it's Hisense. But the man told me, buy LG products because their product is the best. Because we don't want you to return it back and come back and say it has spoiled. Because they know I can come back and say, I'm returning it for one defect or the other. And they have to accept it. When we have problem where you go to the market and buy ingredients, tomato, pepper, onion to make soup. Are you protected? Does the law protect you? You go to a restaurant to eat, you are given stale food. Can you complain? Because you have the right to look at the food and say, I'm not eating. Or you have started eating, halfway you discover something you don't like. You draw their attention. This is what you served me. I'm not going to pay. Can you do that? All these things, people ought to be aware that goods and services must conform to those rights. All right? Right to good health, right to education, right of choice, right of all the things I have mentioned.
So let's look at the other end, because I believe one of the common, phrases or things that they say to defend the no refund policies, or there are a couple of unscrupulous people that would go use your products, say maybe wear your clothing and then bring it back after they've used it for what they want to. So are they protected in any way as well? That is the companies or the organizations.
If they can prove that it has been done, it's a question of proof.
Okay, so if they can prove it,
the Copyright Commission has to act on that. It's their duty. Because you go and buy something only to realize that it has been duplicated. It's not really what you return it.
Okay, so So let's talk about the role of the media in all of this whole talk now. Before now, the media was known to educate people on their rights and what have you. But recently, there have been issues of media infiltration by the way some company uses the media to mislead people when it comes to their products and the function of the product in question to the people. What is your take on this?
First of all, I blame the Nigerian Broadcasting Commission because they are not doing what they should.
Okay.
They are not doing their supervisory role. All right? And they should be held responsible. If I'm the president, I will fire whoever is in charge. There are code of conducts for media.
Exactly.
We all know them. They are not supposed to transgress out of that bound. If they do, they'll be slammed with a lot of things. Defamation, libel, and everything. You see? So it all boils down to National Orientation Agency, the National Broadcasting Commission, those in charge of media outlets have to be alive to their responsibilities. But forgive me, if I read Mascom and she reads B.A. Yoruba and she's the head of that place, I'm out of a job.
Yes.
Do you think she will do that?
Sure.
No. The second thing, like I always emphasize on, is corruption.
Yes.
Because somebody who wants to market his products, I mean,
It's all about the money.
it's about the money, nothing. Even services. There was a case I did on oil spill. You need to see the oil devastation in that community. Their farmlands, their drinking water were terminated.
What about
And they,
sorry.
they hired a lawyer to file a case against the company. Well, that lawyer couldn't make any headway for some reasons. Then he remembered that I'm here. Then he put a call through me that, sir, this is the problem.
But isn't there an agency for that? That's Nostra, National for
We are
Response
waiting for
Bill.
them.
Wow, that actually shows how
Yes.
down we are.
Yeah, so I went and the devastation was much, really. So I asked the lawyer, how much are they looking for as compensation? The community wants 100 million naira as compensation from the oil company. And what's your take on that? He said 10%.
10% of the 100 million?
Don't mind him. And I said, as a lawyer, you are charging 10% of 100 million. What if the courts award 30 million? Are you looking for 10 million or still 10%? Which will translate to 3 million.
Yeah.
I said, no. So when I took over the case and I addressed the community and said, you are looking for 100 million as community? They say, yes. I said, what if the court awards me? They say, no, sir, you know this oil company, they can't. They will not. We are looking for 100 million. I said, but you should know that the court may award less and it may award more. Say, no, we are not just 100 million. I said, let's put it right. And we did everything right. And when I filed the case and I did what I needed to do, despite the efforts by the company giving me 10 million as my flight tickets, accommodation. Was I working for them? No. Why would they fund my...
They're coming through the back.
Yes, you know what they
So
want.
when I filed a claim of 500 million, I say, what? No, it can't be. We negotiated to cut everything short. We had to agree at 350 million compensation.
For the community.
And I asked my lawyers, what do you think we should give the community? Because they said, no, they can't give more than 100 million. It's just the highest we're looking. So now I got consent judgment for 315 million. Assuming you are working with me, how much do we give the community?
The ones that are
provide services,
devastated, yes.
Isn't it? How much do we give them? 100 million less 10%? Yeah, parties are bound by their contracts, isn't it? We had an agreement. Nafisa, they wanted 100 million. And because I trust my skill, I had to inform them. They have the right to be informed.
Yeah.
So what if I get more than that? I say, no, you know these oil companies,
They won't.
They won't
say,
give
let's
that.
put it right. We did. We are going to, if you get 100 million, we give you 10 million, 10%. But if you get less than 100 million, because you now inform us that the court may award less. Okay, we negotiate. I say, fine. And I look at the lawyer. So let's put it in writing. But not trusting my skills, the little skills I know. Well, I got 350 million for them. The question is, how much are you going to give the
The
community?
community.
Because in law, parties are bound by their contracts. What we agreed on, right?
Yeah.
That's what you would give.
But is it my drinking water or my farmland that is devastated?
No.
So how much do I give the community? So when it comes to services also, you need to inform them. What if we have the situation at hand?
Okay.
The principle behind it is that the consumer ought to know, and he must know what he suspects.
Okay. So to cap this up, consumers need to be enlightened.
To be informed, to be enlightened.
Okay, and then the agencies as well, like
The
you mentioned.
The agencies need to do theirs. Look at NESRIA. Nigeria Environmental Standards and Regulatory Authority. They are an agency that should protect the environment. But can the oil community rush to NESRIA and say this? No. Why? Because NESRIA, as a regulatory authority, does not have jurisdiction over oil and gas pollution. Section 7H, Section 8K of the Act. So what the hell?
Well,
So you go to NOSRA.
yeah. That's
Right to NOSRA. Nigerian Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency. And you notify them. And they write to the oil companies, for instance.
But that sounds like a long process. How long?
That's what I'm telling you.
So
It will be done, but not at the right time you expect.
I guess this is just a call out to, consumers. If you're watching, try to know your rights. And for the agencies, we need to do better and work on nepotism. We can talk about this, for the entire time. But I want to say thank you very much, Dr. Jibril, for coming on to the
Thank
show.
you very much.
It's a pleasure having you. Just one little tradition we have here. You need to tell us where you're from and say anything you want in Hausa. Oh, did I just give that away? Okay, fine. Just let us know where you're from.
Okay, I come from Daura, Katsina State. I'm Hausa by tribe.
So how many languages do you speak?
I speak, I think 2 or 3 languages.
What are they?
Arabic, a bit of it, because my specialty is oil and gas. I can't go to the Middle East and start speaking English. I speak Hausa and a bit of English. It's not my language.
Okay, so just speak anything you want to the camera. Just say anything you want, like about the show, or say bye to anybody watching.
The show is
in Hausa or any language you choose.
okay.
Yeah.
I should use Hausa or
Any Nigerian language you understand.
Or African.
Africa, yeah.
to na gode kwarai da gaske da wannan abun nan din da muka yi, kuma na ji daɗi, kuma ina fata wannan abun zai ci gaba, kuma na gode ma duk wanda suka zauna da mu muka tattauna, kamar Fred, kamar Christina da Nafisa da kuma abokan aiki, cameraman wanda suka ɗau hoto, na gode muku.
The thank you was spread to everybody here.
Yes.
Okay, this was another episode of State of the Culture.
Do not
Something
forget.
is happening.
I think
has
Swank,
already.
you always do this.
She has. She was
You've done
carrying
it. The last time you done it was yours, isn't it?
Yeah.
To kind of remind her.
Yeah.
She always does this.
We normally have a package for our guests. Thank you so much. This is just like a thank you package for
thank you very much. I really appreciate.
Thank you for coming on the show. We
Yes.
hope to have you, some other time because I know you have a lot. To offer.
Anytime.
Thank you so much.
I'll be available for you.
Okay, thank you, for being useful somehow. I know.
That
we
was
can't close the show.
That was a good one.
Please close show. Don't even give time to what they call it. Are you
No, it's
signing
cool.
out
She's
or
been
not?
storing all that banter in her forehead. But anyway, signing out. It's been me, Frederick, your social prefect.
Nefisat Ohnene Abdurrahman.
Yeah, I love the way she looks, by the way, if I haven't told her.
Oh,
thank you
thank
so
you.
much. I'm Justina Angiatin. And this is signing off from me. Don't forget to download that app. Remember.